Good evening. Boris Johnson says tempers need to calm down in Parliament after torrid scenes in the Commons last night. Several MPs say they've received death threats and partially blame Mr Johnson's words on Brexit for fuelling extremist behaviour. The Prime Minister says he totally deplores any threats to anybody, particularly female MPs, but has refused to apologise for his use of language. The Speaker of the Commons, John Bercow, described the culture within the chamber as toxic and said it was the worst atmosphere he had ever witnessed in the House. Our political editor Laura Kuenssberg's report contains some very strong language.
We will not betray the people who sent us here.
Subject to death threats and abuse every single day.
I've never heard such humbug in all my life.
This is the language. A publicist, this is it.
Politics has never been for faint hearts.
This man is an idiot. We won't tolerate this. Sorry.
But there was poison in the air last night.
Right.
That is respectable, whatever your views are.
Was your language in the Commons yesterday appropriate?
Frustrated by a lack of Brexit progress, the Prime Minister is happy to provoke.
I totally deplore any threats to anybody, particularly female MPs. And a lot of work is being done to stop that and to give people the security that they need. Okay. But I do think it's important that in the House of Commons I should be able to talk about the Surrender Bill and the Surrender Act in the way that I did.
But there's fury from Labour MPs at that kind of talk. An encounter between a Labour MP and the Prime Minister's advisor, Dominic Cummings, in Parliament was filmed by a member of the MP's team.
I've had death threats overnight. Should be dead. It's a disgrace.
The MP, Carl Turner, said he'd had death threats last night. Mr Cummings' answer: get Brexit done.
Don't tell me to get Brexit done.
In the Commons itself, a sense of disbelief for a moment the morning after the night before.
Yesterday, the House did itself no credit.
Still rage, though, from a friend of the murdered MP, Joe Cox.
When I hear of my friend's murder and the way that it has made me and my colleagues feel, and feel scared, described as humbug, I actually don't feel anger towards the Prime Minister. I feel pity for those of you who still have to toe his line.
One MP, though, told me everyone's a hypocrite. Every side is guilty.
It was yesterday she was the person I could hear screaming the loudest from her bench.
But most of the ire was reserved for the Prime Minister.
To dismiss concerns from members about the death threats they receive and to dismiss concerns that the language used by the Prime Minister is being repeated in those death threats is reprehensible.
Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister is not fit for office. His behaviour is an outrage and his government is treating people disgracefully.
Yet the Prime Minister's backers believe Brexit's opponents will do almost anything to attack him.
There is a strategy. The Prime Minister is the last thing standing between ending the Brexit enterprise entirely. He can expect no quarter. Absolutely everything is going to be thrown at him.
As he prepared to gather his cabinet, the Prime Minister said tempers need to come down. But the chances of him listening to this reprimand from a predecessor in number 10 are slim to none.
Words such as saboteur, traitor, enemy, surrender, betrayal, which should have no place in our party, no place in our political discourse, nor in our politics, and nor, for that matter, in our wider society.
But whatever the difficulty, whatever the distress, there is no intention in Downing Street, none at all, of pulling back from their overall tough approach. A belief even this is a pent-up conflict that must play out to clear the way for Brexit. Okay. Patting each other on the back when there's so much frustration in every corner of the country and this political village. The government playing tough appeals to some, but could cause other voters to take fright. Laura Kuenssberg, BBC News, Westminster.
Well, the tone in Parliament was very different today as the impact of last night's exchanges sank in. But what do people outside Westminster think of the language some MPs have been using? Our political correspondent Alex Forsyth reports now from the Conservative-held constituency of Walsall North, which voted to leave the EU.
Life on this factory floor feels a far cry from the chaos in Westminster. This firm near Walsall makes and designs high-end door and window fittings, and plenty here think Parliament needs to get a grip.
I've never heard such humbug in all my life.
Director Paul is craving an end to Brexit uncertainty, but isn't filled with confidence after watching the House of Commons.
I mean, as a business, we just couldn't act in that way. We need to keep planning, we need to keep moving forward. And this kind of almost childish behaviour is not what you want to see.
Peter's from Slovakia and has lived in the UK for 8 years. He thinks the political discourse is stoking division.
They shouldn't be really, using that kind of language in there, like betrayal and stuff, because it's, probably fueling the atmosphere that is in a society.
This is a Conservative constituency, but only by a narrow margin. Most people here voted leave. It's the kind of place Number 10 hopes its firm Brexit message will play well.
From the start, Boris Johnson has tried to paint himself as the man who will stick up for the Brexit-backing public, the person who'll deliver for those who voted leave. And the language he's using is all part of that strategy, trying to put himself on the side of the people versus what he portrays as a parliament trying to hinder Brexit.
Critics say it's a deeply divisive tactic, but for some at the Coffee and Grill, it's working.
He's right in a good many things what he says. It's what people out here like us say.
Colin too is convinced.
What other language could he use? He's been stitched up by Parliament as far as I'm concerned. They're hypocrites. The country voted out. Whether you like it or not, the country voted Brexit.
But his son doesn't trust Boris Johnson or anyone.
I felt, oh my God, I've voted for Conservatives. What am I going to do now? Because I hate them all.
We're all going to starve to death. We'll have no medicines. It's such garbage.
For many, the heated arguments are simply a turn-off.
Can get out of hand, I think.
Yeah, but they never seem to agree with each other, do they? It's just like one long battle all the time.
At the local pet shop, there's an even stronger view.
The public are thinking, this is what we voted for, this is our government, and it's just disgraceful.
So while Westminster continues to wrangle, the country continues to watch, still divided and increasingly frustrated. Alex Forsyth, BBC News.